You go to bed tonight, and something strange happens. You actually stay asleep all night. No one has to stand guard. No one has to stay half alert, listening for a sound in the dark. That is not normal. That is not how your ancestors slept for most of human history. For tens of thousands of years, sleep itself was one of the most dangerous things a human being could do. And the species developed a strange, exhausting solution just to survive it. Then something changed the equation completely. And it was not fire. It was not shelter. It was an animal lying at the edge of the camp, one ear still working, doing a job the human body was never actually built to do alone. Sleep should be simple. Lie down, close your eyes, recover, but sleep is also the single most vulnerable state an animal can enter. No awareness, no defense, no ability to run. For a species living in the open, surrounded by predators that hunted at night specifically because prey was slower and blinder in the dark, sleep was not rest. Sleep was risk. Stacked 8 hours deep, every single night, for the entire span of human existence, before agriculture, before permanent shelter, before almost everything you would associate with safety. There was no door to lock, no walls thick enough to matter, just a body lying still in the open, hoping the dark stayed empty until morning. And it rarely stayed empty for long. The same landscape that fed early humans during the day was hunting them at night. A species with dull night vision, average hearing, and almost no sense of smell had to somehow survive the hours when every advantage belonged to something else. To understand what that actually cost the human body, researchers turned to the closest living window we have into that world. Groups who still live largely the way humans did for most of our history, before clocks, before electricity, before locked doors. Researchers who study modern hunter-gatherer groups have found something that reshapes how we think about ancient sleep entirely. Groups like the Hadza of Tanzania do not sleep in one solid block. At almost no point during the night are all members of the group unconscious at the same time. Actigraphy studies tracking Hadza sleep found that everyone being asleep simultaneously happened for a matter of minutes across weeks of observation. Minutes, not hours, across weeks. The rest of the time, someone, somewhere in the group, was awake, or in a light enough stage of sleep to notice something wrong. That is not an accident. Researchers call it the sentinel hypothesis, and it appears to be baked directly into human biology. Not learned, not taught, not agreed upon around a fire. People do not all share the same internal clock. Some fall asleep early and wake early. Some stay up late and rise late. Scientists call this your chronotype, and in an industrial world we treat it as a scheduling inconvenience, something to work around with alarm clocks and coffee. In an ancestral world, it may have been the entire point. Natural variation in chronotype meant a group of humans sleeping together would never all lose consciousness at once. Someone was always at the edge of the perimeter, without ever agreeing to be, without ever being asked. The elders who woke early, the teenagers who stayed up late, every one of them functioning as an unpaid, unconscious watch shift, rotating automatically through the night, generation after generation, without a single person designing it on purpose. It worked, but it came at a cost, and the cost was sleep itself. If part of a population needs to be semi-alert at all times, that population is not getting deep, uninterrupted, fully restorative sleep. It is getting something closer to rationed sleep, fragmented on purpose, engineered by evolution to trade rest for survival. Hunter-gatherer groups today sleep less than most people in industrialized nations, often under 7 hours a night, sometimes closer to 6. And yet, here is the detail that should stop you. These same groups report almost no insomnia. Some hunter-gatherer languages do not even contain a word for it. Their sleep is short and interrupted, and it does not appear to be broken. Ours is longer and protected, guarded by locked doors and quiet streets. And millions of us still cannot manage it. That difference is the real mystery, and it points somewhere specific. The problem was never the amount of sleep. The problem was the vigilance underneath it. An ancient system still running in modern brains long after the actual threats disappeared. And if that system evolved to solve a specific danger, then anything that could genuinely neutralize that danger should have changed the sleep itself, not just the environment around it. Something that did not need to take turns, something that did not need to sacrifice its own rest to keep watch. Something built for exactly this, and nothing else. That is what a dog at the edge of a Paleolithic camp actually was. The timeline matters here. Genetic studies place the domestication of the wolf into the earliest dogs somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years ago, long before farming, long before villages, long before humans had any other reliable way to secure a sleeping space. This was not a farmer domesticating a working animal to guard livestock. This was a species in the open, in the dark, in constant low-grade danger, forming a bond with the one predator willing to stand between them and every other predator. A dog's senses do not power down the way a human's do. Its hearing operates across a wider range of frequencies than ours, tuned to catch movement and sound a human ear filters out entirely. The kind of low rustle or distant footfall that would never break a person's sleep. Its sense of smell can register the presence of an approaching animal long before any visual or auditory cue would reach a sleeping human, sometimes while that threat is still far outside the light of the fire. Dogs also sleep in short, frequently interrupted bouts of their own, waking and resettling throughout the night in a pattern that keeps at least partial awareness active the entire time. In other words, the species that joined the human camp came pre-built with exactly the sentinel function humans had been improvising through chronotype variation, except sharper, more constant, and free. For the first time, an ancient human group did not need to burn part of its own population's sleep to stay protected through the night. The dog absorbed that role completely. It did not get tired of it the way a person would. It did not need to be convinced to take the late shift, or reminded, or rotated out for fairness. It simply existed, alert in ways the human body could not sustain on its own night after night. And that meant the humans around it could do something they had rarely been able to do consistently in the entire history of the species. Actually sleep, all the way down, fully unconscious, fully still, for hours at a stretch, without the cost of a fractured group watch rotation quietly eating into everyone's rest. This matters more than it sounds like it should, because deep, consolidated sleep is not a luxury. It is when the brain consolidates memory, clears metabolic waste, regulates hormones, and repairs the immune system. Sleep scientists describe this in stages. And the deepest stages, the ones the body relies on most for physical repair, are also the easiest ones for a half-alert brain to skip entirely. Chronic fragmented sleep, the kind the sentinel system likely produced across a population living under constant threat for hundreds of thousands of years, is linked to elevated stress hormones and weakened immune response over time. A group that could finally sleep in longer, less interrupted stretches was not just more comfortable. It was healthier, sharper, and better equipped to survive the next day, and the one after that, compounding across a lifetime, and then across generations that never had to know anything different. There is a physical record of this shift too. At numerous ancient sites, dog remains are found positioned near hearths and sleeping areas, close enough to suggest they were part of the immediate resting space, rather than kept at a distance the way you might keep a working animal. Some burials even place dogs directly alongside human remains, treated with a level of care that suggests they were not seen as tools, but as something closer to kin. That placement was not sentimental. It was functional. You put your best early warning system as close to your body as it would tolerate, because the closer it slept, the faster its alertness became yours, and the less your own nervous system had to carry alone through the dark. Think about what that actually rewired. A brain that had spent hundreds of thousands of years treating unconsciousness as a calculated risk was suddenly given permission to stop calculating. Researchers who study the domestication process describe it less as humans training an animal and more as two species quietly renegotiating the terms of survival, each one solving a problem the other could not solve alone. Humans offered warmth, food, and the fire. Dogs offered the one thing no chronotype rotation could ever fully provide, a nervous system built entirely for nighttime vigilance with nothing else to spend its energy on. And the old system did not vanish. It is still sitting inside you right now, which is part of why so many modern humans struggle to sleep in ways that would baffle a Hadza elder sleeping on the open ground. The teenager who cannot fall asleep before midnight. The light sleeper who wakes at the smallest sound. The person who only sleeps well with someone else in the house. These are not malfunctions. They are an ancient sentinel system with nothing left to watch for, still running on a threat that disappeared thousands of years ago, still asking a body that no longer needs it to stay half ready for danger. Modern life removed the predators, but never sent the memo to the nervous system. Locked doors, alarm systems, entire cities that never fully go dark. None of it speaks the language the Sentinel system was built to listen for. It does not recognize silence as safety. It only recognizes a warm body nearby, breathing, alert, sharing the risk. Which may be part of why so many people sleep worse alone in a perfectly secure apartment than their ancestors did on open ground surrounded by actual danger, as long as that ground had a dog on it. Except, some of us do still have the animal. If you have ever slept better with a dog in the room, if the sound of it shifting on the floor or at the foot of the bed felt less like a disturbance and more like a reason you could finally let go, that is not nostalgia. That is an old arrangement still technically in effect. Tens of thousands of years after it was first made, an animal took over the one job the human nervous system could never fully put down. And in exchange, we got something we had almost never been allowed to have in the entire history of the species. A full night, uninterrupted, undefended by our own exhausted bodies. It was not company. It was permission. Permission to finally close your eyes all the way, for the first time since we came down out of the trees, and trust that something else was listening instead.